I usually correct them, hey, I came from North Korea. And then they actually, stunned. And
most people would be stunned.
Being 1% doesn't mean you have an absolute freedom, as often described here.
Right.
We don't have the freedom of movement. We don't have freedom of speech.
It's time for another episode of RFA Insider.
That was Amy and I'm Eugene, and today on RFA Insider we've got an extra special double episode featuring parts 1 and 2 of an interview with North Korean escapee siblings Seohyun and Hyunseung Lee.
The first half of our discussion talks a little about their decision to escape, their time in South Korea before coming to the United States, and their experiences in the Korean American community.
So let's get right into it. RFA Insider starts right now.
어떻게 만들었지?
他们录片打嘞。
怎么做的?
How it's made. Hyunseung and Seohyun Lee are North Korean escapees who were once part of North Korea's upper crust. The Washington Post described the world which North Korean one-percenters lived in as Pyonghattan, meaning that while they lived in Pyongyang, their lifestyle was closer to that of wealthy Manhattan residents. After they escaped from North Korea and settled in the U.S., the Lee siblings got an actual taste of New York when they started school at Columbia University. Our very own Korean service followed them around to film a documentary during their time as students. But now they're both graduated and are preparing to start the next chapter of their lives. Welcome to RFA Insiders, Seohyun and Hyunseung, and congratulations.
Yay, welcome to the podcast.
Congrats on
you.
graduating.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we're very honored to have you in here. And I have to say that when I first met the both of you, maybe last month, I was kind of starstruck because it's not often that whenever I'm writing an English story that I get to see in person the people that I'm writing about. So, I was like, I wanted to invite you on the podcast and I wanted to make a good impression. I was like, what can I talk about? What can I talk about? So I'm thinking about the video that you guys shot, and there's this one shot of you guys, or Hyunseung actually, shopping at H-Mart in the video when you're on your off time from Columbia University. And I was like, I can talk about H-Mart. Yeah, I like the part where you were at H-Mart. and then you looked at me, I was like, they think I'm an idiot. Oh no, what am I going to do?
Why H-Mart, Eugene?
I don't know. It was just, you know what it was, is there's one frame of that video where they actually reversed the video. So you can see that you're wearing a shirt that says Columbia University, but it's backwards. And I guess that just stuck in my mind for some reason. But anyway, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And it's not very often also that we get guests that can do work with us in more than one language.
Yes.
And so we are very appreciative of that.
Thank you so much for having us. And I really appreciate, the Radio Free Asia's, the phenomenal documentary of us. And it is really the first time we are featured in documentary. So thank you so much for your hard work and excellent work.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Basically, he covered all my words.
Okay.
I have nothing to say, but I really appreciate your team's work, and then especially Jamin Anderson and then Jae Park, who spent 4 or 5 days with us from the morning to the evening. I mean, it was really hard time for us, but because it was in the midterm periods, but it also very kind of challenging for them as well to kind of adjusting the schedules for us. And then, so I appreciate all of the hard works of them too.
Yeah, I saw the clip where you were submitting your assignment outside.
It was kind of crazy big.
Right. So we're going to be referencing this video that the two of them are in very much. So any listeners out there, if you want to see the video, I'm going to link it inside the show notes for this episode. So let's get into some questions. I'll start off with... So you're both described as one-percenters by other news outlets. Can you explain briefly how and why your standard of living was better than that of the typical North Korean?
Absolutely. The term 1% here is often used describe those who are part of the North Korean regime's elite class, which my family was part of due to my father's high-ranking position. In North Korea, the vast majority of people struggle with the basic needs like food, electricity, transportation, and healthcare. But for us, life was quite better. We had access to things that most North Koreans could only dream of, things like regular meats and seafood. imported goods and opportunity to study abroad, even if was severely limited and controlled. Our access to education was also superior, with opportunities to learn foreign languages and skills that were simply unavailable to the average North Koreans. This stark contrast is why the term 1% here gets thrown around. We were living in a bubble, isolated from the harsh realities that most people face every day in North Korea.
One thing that's very important to highlight as well is that being on 1% doesn't mean you have an absolute freedom, as often described here.
Right.
We don't have the freedom of movement. We don't have freedom of speech. And like many of the North Korean people, we don't have the freedom of the being together. So that is also something that I want other people know. We talking about 1% of the North Korean people. Many of them think that they might have much better kind of different authorities and freedom than other people, but it is not. For example, it is true that we went to all good schools, but we also had very limited limitation on the transportation. So, when other people work for an hour from school to home, I also did as well. Even my father was given a car to use. It is the part of the government assets, not our assets. So, as part of the family member, I could not use my father's car given by the government. So otherwise, my father is gonna later punished for using the private his government car for the private purposes. So I just want to give more kind of backgrounds and aspects what life could look like being 1% in North Korea.
No, that's good, because a lot of times when people say 1% or in English, they think of the children of billionaires. And in your case, you're still in a very tight box and tight community, and anything you do can be reported by anyone.
Right.
So it's good to make that distinction. And you do make mention of your father and his position quite a lot. Do you feel comfortable sharing who he is and what his position was?
Yeah, actually, my dad is writing his memoir, and it's almost done. So my dad was high-ranking economic official while he was serving North Korea.
Yeah.
So he was the chairman of North Korea Kumgang Economic Development Group under the North Korea's Defense Committee. And before that, he was the CEO of North Korea's Seohyun General Trading Company under North Korea's Office 39.
Office 39 is, of course, I guess it's not a well-documented group, but it's supposed to be covert, I suppose.
Like a arm, I think.
But it's a group that manages the slush funds for the North Korean leadership.
Yeah, so basically Office 39 is the safe of Kim Jong-un's personal money.
Okay.
So, but it collects entire assets, funding from all over the country, all across the department. So basically it's a safe. And Kim Jong-un uses money whenever he wants, and then whatever he wants to utilize.
I see.
So the function of Office 39 is the most closed safe for Kim Jong-un.
But interesting fact is that everything in North Korea is belong to Kim Jong-un. So it's kind of when we describe about the Office 39 to the outsiders, I sometimes feel kind of stuck, because everything in North Korea, even the people are the assets to the Kim Jong-un. So Office 39 slush funds, whatever, but nobody realized that they work for these making the slush funds inside of North Korea, because everything, as I mentioned, everything, the human resources, natural resources, everything belongs to Kim Jong-un. And it depends on how he wants to use the money. And nobody has that control over Kim Jong-un's money. So.
Right. Okay.
All right. So I guess the natural follow-up would be, if your lives were that much better in North Korea, why did you escape? In our coverage, we found that while you all were sent to China for your father's work, you decided to escape and move to South Korea in 2014. So what was it that made you all want to leave your privileged lives in North Korea and start over in the South?
That's a great question, and one that people often ask. So yes, our lives were more comfortable compared to average North Koreans, but doesn't mean we were truly free, as my sister mentioned earlier. And despite our privileges, we were still living under the regime that controls every aspect of life. For example, what you think, what you say, and even what you aspire to become. We had more material comfort, but that doesn't, equate to freedom. Our decision to leave wasn't about seeking a better lifestyle in terms of material wealth. It was about seeking freedom, the freedom to think, to speak, and to live our lives without constant fear. So before 2014, while we were in China, we were exposed to information we simply couldn't access in North Korea. And we began to understand how oppressive the regime was, not just to the general population, but to everyone, including elite class. The privileges we had didn't compensate for the constant surveillance, the fear of saying the wrong thing, and the understanding that at any moment everything could be taken away if we fell out of favor with the regime. So we realized that the true freedom and safety could only be found outside of North Korea. So we made a difficult decision to leave everything behind, even the relative comfort we had, to seek a life where we could be genuinely free. And there are another reason we left. Actually, at the moment, there were severe executions committed by the current North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. So my sister personally experienced the tragedy of her friend, and maybe she can elaborate more.
Yeah, so from the end of the 2013, December 2013, and then until we left China, Kim Jong-un executed about 500 officers, executed or purged about 500 officers, and then you can just multiply 3 or 4 because of the guilt by association, that system.
Yes.
It normally takes a whole entire family's life. So I personally witnessed my best friend was taken up by the North Koreans, the security agent, sent back to North Korea, and later I found out that her father was executed, and she was sent to the political prison camp with her mom and her brother. So, but that was just the beginning, and then I heard countless similar news from North Korea. So I went to Kim Il-sung University in North Korea. So that's it. That university it is often where the high-ranking officers, the children or grandchildren, come to school. So I heard from my friends that they are afraid of going to school, because every morning when they enter the school, they find out someone is missing from the crowd, which means the purge and execution happen almost every day in North Korea within a year. And whenever I hear those news, our human beings, of course, comfortable life is important, but we, as a human being, we have the innate sense of justice, and then the compassion for others, and that kind of grow in my from the inside. And then after a few months later, when I found out what actually happened to my best friend, I kind of lost the loyalty and to the regime. So that was one of the biggest reasons that I couldn't justify my reason to stay longer as a North Korean. And so when my dad brought up the question, if we want to make that decision to leave the North Korea, I think I was the first person that saw him.
It's amazing that you can talk about that without getting overly emotional. I think if something like that were to happen to any of us, I don't think I'd be able to say it with a straight face. And I'm also almost about to cry just hearing you talk about it. So thank you very much for sharing that. So just for background, this period of execution was after Kim Jong-un executed his uncle Jang Song-taek, right? And so these were all people connected to him.
That was
right?
the start. Yes.
That was the start. Okay. And then also you also mentioned the Kim Il-sung University. Of course, that is the top university in North Korea. Yep. Kim Il-sung is the founder of the country. You can, if anybody listening to this, if you want to know about, the Kim dynasty, he's the progenitor of the Kim dynasty. And through him, after came Kim Jong-il. And then after Kim Jong-il, we have the current leader, Kim Jong-un, in the third generation of the Kim dynasty. All right, let's continue. So you arrived in South Korea in 2014. And then there's like a little bit of a gap in the coverage because when I was working on the English story, I had the question. I was like, okay, it says you arrived in 2014 and then you left in 2016 without any mention of what happened in South Korea. And I understand maybe there's personal reasons that you don't want to discuss your time too much, but could you describe any details about what life was like there? And also, why didn't you just stop in South Korea? And why did you decide to come to the U.S.? Because, I mean, a lot of the way that people frame it is that once you arrive in South Korea, you can just thrive there, right? So could you discuss some of those situations in the South?
Yes, we can, expose everything we experienced in South Korea, but I can share a little bit. And so after we arrived in South Korea, we actually safeguarded by South Koreans, the government for 5 months in the safe house. So, we were not connected to the world. Seriously, no internet, no cell phones, because of our safety. So, we heard that North Korean agents and even Chinese, agents were chasing us at the moment.
Wow.
So.
This is very different from the typical escapee experience where they arrive and they go to an organization called the Hanawan, which is a re-education facility to kind of acclimate people to South Korean society. But you were stuck directly in a safe house.
Yes.
And not allowed to go out.
Yeah.
For 5 months.
I was going to ask.
But
so you couldn't leave the safe house?
No. So during the weekend, we actually went out, grocery shopping and then, theater, the movie screening. So, but with the agents together. So, mainly because of the safety issue, we were not able to incorporate the society. And even if I want to apply a job and I should have a resume, right?
Yeah.
But I cannot have a resume because all my history is in North Korea.
Right.
And then there might be a question from the companies. So whenever I want to apply a job, no, actually I didn't, but my sister did. It was usually later. But we need to verify who I am. And in that case, South Korean government should issue something for us. So, but I don't like that. So, and then also there's constant threat from the North Korean regime, and they showed my grandma and my father's, brother and sister on North Korean TV show and publicly threatened, you guys shouldn't stay in South Korea, come back Pyongyang immediately. But you all know that it's, public threat and then the signal that if we do something in South Korea, they might kill our relatives in North Korea.
Yes.
So, that's part of the main reason we decide to, leave South Korea. Came to United States.
Reduce the threat then?
Yeah, because we need to save those people's lives, right?
I see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even though we can thrive in South Korea and we might have a lot of opportunity, political opportunity and economic opportunity, but we decide that, we need to save those people. So.
And we have to remind ourselves that every 5 years, I think it is similar in America too, but in South Korea, whenever a new kind of party came over to the power, there's always a lot of changes in policies, and especially towards North Korean escapees resident in South Korea. So we couldn't really settle down in the society. Everywhere we go, we have to hide our identity. And then we came to South Korea to find our freedom, but it was not the life we envisioned. And then like mentally we might free. Physically we might free in there, but like mentally it was you are never free in that society. So all of these things, what my brother just mentioned, the threats constantly coming from North Korean regime, because in North Korea, if you are coming from the like a higher position, like the more kind of severe and then punishment that governments like put on you. So they didn't want it to leave a bad case. So like they never give up that chasing us even after like several months. And so that was the biggest reason that in order to save our family members left behind in North Korea, and also for us to truly find our freedom, we had to leave the South Korea and came back to America. But under the current administration, like life of the North Korean escapees got much better. We, as we all know, we have like 2 former congressmen and then 1 current congressman as well, and a lot of like North Korean escapees kind of like find their roles and play an important role in making the new path for the Korea unification. So I'm really proud of them and happy for them that they are able to thrive there, but like it was not the right time for us at the moment.
I see. And so when you arrived in South Korea, that was in the middle of the Park Geun-hye administration, right?
Yep.
So
almost at the end of the Park Geun-hye administration.
Right. And then there was a huge shift when the Moon Jae-in came in, being more softer towards North Korean regime, and I guess there are people who don't like that. I mean, I don't want to go too much into South Korean politics, but the Park Geun-hye administration ended on a really bad note with all of her scandals and everything. And I guess her view, though, was that she consulted fortune tellers and thought that there would be a reunification during her presidency.
Yeah, she mentioned the unification is bonanza.
Yes. 통일은 대박이다.
그러나 저는 한마디로 통일은 대박이다. 이렇게 생각을 합니다.
I remember that.
So another, point I want to highlight was we know the system, North Korean system, and the North Korean agents in like across the world, they have a different passport.
Right.
Simply, they can travel to South Korea, and if they got the order from North Korean government, they can conduct at any time, at any moment they want. So, as you know, there are assassination, happened, and attempts were conducted, like in South Korea as well. So, we at the time got the message and direct threat by the North Korean regime. So that's another reason that we had to leave the country. Yeah.
I understand. Okay.
Often coverage of North Korean escapees focuses on the actual escape, right? Like crossing the border into China, traveling to Southeast Asia, and then eventually reaching a South Korean embassy. And usually the story ends when they arrive in South Korea, when it's really only the beginning of their new lives. So we don't want to minimize, the great efforts and risks taken by the escapees. But it seems like international coverage is less interested in what happens to those escapees afterwards. Things like discrimination, difficulty adjusting, and what some describe as living as a second-class citizen. Did you also experience those things when integrating into South Korean society?
Since I was in South Korea just about a year, and I was not exposed to the society, I only spent the time with my friends. The friends whom I studied in China together. So I graduated Chinese college, and then while I was studying there, I got along with the South Korean overseas students.
I see.
And I played soccer with them and played poker with them and
Nice.
drinking with them. So when I arrived in South Korea, they were literally, stunned. And then first time I approached, I called them and text message, and they thought I was, like some kind of scam.
Right.
Because they couldn't believe. So actually, I spend most of my time in South Korea with them.
I see.
So I haven't got any discrimination. But as you know, life in South Korea was like kind of mixture relief and challenge. We kind of have relief that, we escaped from the immediate, danger. But still, adjusting to new environment are challenging. So, but I was trying to avoid that, the difficulties, because I also advise that I shouldn't be public, like talking or activity, because we should stay low profile because of our safety and also safety in people in North Korea. So I was following that type of not order, but kind of agreement. So yeah, we were.
We didn't have much direct experience in receiving discriminations among the society, but I think discrimination existing everywhere. Even in North Korea, people discriminate each other based on their
regional,
regional origins, which school you went, so it exists everywhere. So it's more about how you are gonna take that. You shouldn't take that in personal. I think. And first of all, we are not able to tell where we are from at the beginning. So people just get to know us that we are lived in China for a long time. Even they notice there are some minor accents for me. They just ignore those accents. And then I often use that living experience in China as an excuse. I'm not familiar with Korean accents. But never really had huge discrimination. I think there are more good people in South Korea. Of course.
Okay, I guess this question wasn't the best question for the two of you.
For us.
But the one fact that I keep listening from my peers in South Korea, that there's a discrimination. Some people perceive them as second class citizen. But I think it's more personal view. But if you decide that it's not discrimination, and then probably it's nothing.
I see.
Yeah.
So I'm gathering from what you're saying is that you didn't have much connection to the rest of the escapee community then?
At the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
When we were in South Korea, so yeah.
I see. Okay, so an experience that many of us of South Korean descent, that includes me, in the U.S. we've had, often when we explain to non-Koreans that our families immigrated here from Korea, they will say, North or South, right? And that's the most ridiculous question you can ask her. How could we possibly be from the North? But in your case, you actually are. So I'd like to ask you if you've ever been in a situation where people just assume that you're from the South and that you grew up in the South, and if that's led to any challenges or misconceptions or difficulties.
Yes, interesting point. Yes, definitely. I encountered situations where people just assume I'm from South Korea. In many cases, when I say I'm Korean, the immediate assumption is that I grew in South Korea. So now I'm saying that I originally from North Korea, just to tell them, so that they can, they don't, assume that I'm from South Korea. So, but I usually correct them, hey, I came from North Korea. And then they actually, stunned. And
most people would be stunned. But there are still people that wouldn't know what that means, I feel like, in this country.
So there's the moment that silence. And then they're trying to process it. And then how. And then they couldn't believe, because their imagination of someone from North Korea doesn't match the person standing in front of them. So you can lead some awkward conversation beginning, and then people keep asking my background. Truly, I was a North Korean escapee, and so I had to explain more than others, why my background is different from other people, why I didn't escape through China, Laos, and then the South Asian countries, and then when I said that we flee from North Korea by taking airplanes, how is that possible? Keep people asking. So that's a kind of challenge that I need to explain more, and even more detail to them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Do you ever feel tired of explaining, or do you just sometimes feel like I'm Korean and just let them assume?
No, I'm actually happy to describe more. But as you know, there are some moments that you don't want to repeat at the same spot.
Right.
Keep telling people that I'm was different, but I'm not saying that, we're not quite different, but we are all in the same oppressive country, but there's some level of oppression. So that's what I'm trying to explain.
We do explain why our backgrounds were quite different from those narratives that many people heard through the medias previously. The reason is not just differentiate our specialties, but it is to kind of give them the kind of whole picture of the system and the country itself. So in that regards, it's really challenging to repeat every time, but we also feel obligated to explain to them and happy to do it.
I imagine, though, it might be more difficult to explain to people that don't have much Korean knowledge at all. Is that the case? Because you have to first explain, why Korea is divided, and then go into history, and then on top of that, you have to explain even further that the Kim dynasty and where your father's position was in the larger scheme of things within the government. And then beyond that, you have to say all this stuff about your experience in China. And I don't know, that could get I just have trouble explaining to people why my name is spelled so weird. I just get annoyed with that. But I think your situation is a lot more challenging to describe over and over and over again. But you probably got good at it by now.
No, I'm still struggling to explain my background. So
and every time when I need to correct my first name, also I also feel bad for the people who are struggling to pronounce my name because it is not such easy easy pronunciation. But so when I first got here, I just picked up the English nickname and used that. But later, after I involved in these activities, I start to use my Korean name, even if I need to, which means that I need to correct 100 times every more than 100 times. I think it is kind of it shows our identity, and then and that itself tells a lot. So
Great.
So you should keep it.
Well, I'm seriously, because even the Korean service, when I first came here, they're like, "Are you Chinese?" And I'm like, "No, just my dad just chose the weird spelling. It should be Hwang. It should be Hwang." But
for context, please tell us how you spell your name and then how it should be spelled.
My family name is spelled in English Whong, and most people with that name will spell it Hwang or Whang. And then so when I tell people that I'm Korean, they're like, "You can't be, because you're not spelling your name in the Korean way." And even last week I went to the doctor, and she has the same family name as me. But anyway, she was saying that, so do you speak Mandarin then? I'm like, no, I speak Korean. She's like, that's weird. Why do you speak Korean? And I had to explain why. And then I was like, well, do you speak Vietnamese? Because she spells her name Hoang. And she's like,
that's weird
she's
too.
She's like, no, because my parents chose the Vietnamese way and not the Mandarin way. So it was really confusing. But anyway, we don't need to talk about my doctor. So
generally, when you say the words North Korea, most Americans imagine, poverty, starvation, generally very dire living conditions. But this hasn't really been so much your experience as upper class North Koreans. Do you also feel the need to add this distinction when you explain that you come from North Korea to people? And what have been their reactions upon learning that maybe this goes against their perception of what?
Yeah, absolutely. When people hear North Korea, they almost automatically think of famine, oppression, and executions and poverty. And while those conditions are certainly a reality for North Korean people, that wasn't my personal experience. So when I tell people that I'm, elite class, and then I often feel that need to clarify that my experience was quite different. So, but people are usually quite surprised because, they, when they hear someone from North Korea, they just hear that, normal people's life. And then it often leads to more questions. My experience it often leads to more questions, and then sometimes even skepticism, because it challenge their preconceived notion of what life in North Korea look like. So, but I think it's important to clarify the distinction, not to downplay the severe hardship they most North Koreans face, but to provide a richer picture of complexity within North Korean society. It's not just, the dictatorship place of suffering. There are layers and nuances of understanding of North Korea, and emphasize that even those of us who were privileged were not truly, free.
Yeah, there are so many misconceptions about the elite class in North Korea as well, from my perspective. So when we say the 1% of elite class, whatever, which we didn't really realize when we are in North Korea, people often see us the 1%, the exploiting class over the general publics, but. In North Korea, it is not how the way it works. There is no exploiting class. Actually, just one family exploiting all 26 million people in North Korea. So, because each different status, everyone has their own struggles. The higher you're on the ladder, the more severe surveillance, punishment, you faces in everyday life in North Korea. So while other general public suffer from hunger, that is the very limit of the kind of freedom. And then the severe punishment are the basic that challenges for the elite class. So even the whisper at your home is such a common sense among the elites, even at home. So.
I see. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question because you've mentioned it. It's come to me while we were over the course of our conversation. So how do you feel about the term Pyonghattan then? Because when people the Washington Post article that described Pyonghattan as this wonderful, almost Beverly Hills-like existence, and now you're describing how actually no, you weren't as free as people in Beverly Hills, and you weren't off going shopping and dating and all that other stuff all the time, and living a carefree life because obviously you had lots of cares. But I think with the term Pyonghattan, it might, I guess, leave the image in people's mind that is very different from what your actual reality was.
Right. It could mislead people, but after experiencing the life in Manhattan last 2 years, I kind of get it why they name it Pyonghattan, because the common image of North Korea for the international society was really different from what they've seen in Pyongyang. So I think that's why. No, it is not because North Korean, the Pyongyang citizens have that much freedom, but just they compare that the appearance of the streets and the people, and then compare that to the kind of image of the Manhattan people, and then they name it in that way. Yeah, definitely. I really want to ask that person who first used the term why, but it is such a brilliant idea.
In my view, the term Pyonghattan was created by the journalist who visited North Korea, right?
Yeah.
And then I think that was the epic moment of North Korea's economy, because from 2009 or late 2009, North Korean leader Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un's father, and then the late Jang Song-taek, they were trying to open society. They changed, reform and open policy. So from that moment, there were lots of economic opportunities inside North Korea. Also, even there is opportunities to do exchanges between China and North Korea and other countries. So a lot of North Korean companies adopted Chinese style of reform into North Korea. So there was economic boom at the moment, and then there was lots of building constructions, and then luxury shopping malls, and even coffee shops. So as you know, when you visit North Korea as a journalist, and North Korean government arrange a very special places for them, right? Luxury places, nice places. So
they only let them cover the things that they want to see, or let them want to show off, right?
Exactly.
And then I'm not sure it's an American thing, but I think people may thought that they need a luxury term for describing
the branding.
Capital of North Korea. So they mentioned the high building like Pyonghattan and Manhattan. But actually, my sister had a YouTube channel named Pyonghattan. But when we named Pyonghattan, we have a different idea.
Okay.
So, we visited, Manhattan, and then there was a symbol of liberty, right? The Statue of Liberty.
Right.
And we thought that, Pyonghattan might be the place for North Korea, like the same, liberty to, like New York City's liberty to North Korea's capital of Pyongyang. So we envisioned that Pyongyang should be like Manhattan in terms of freedom.
Right. So that's something we're working towards then, is what you're suggesting. Okay, that's a really good term. And I think that you've embraced the term.
I also had a follow-up question. You mentioned how like levels of freedom and like surveillance might differ depending on what class you are in as North Korean. Would you say people in the lower classes are more free to do things like watch like foreign media or like enjoy outside content more so than upper class North Koreans?
So I don't have much experience outside the Pyongyang area, but not quite exactly the same, idea that you mentioned. Like, maybe it could be a misleading point that other, general population have freedom to access, certain things, but it's not. North Korea is the society, controls every aspect of people. Not, it's a different level of surveillance and control. But still, as even students, they are controlled by the school and then by the organizations organized by North Korean government. So there are not many free time you can do. It is most of the activities and times are controlled by the government and then even like organizations. So actually, I don't think they have a much freedom than elite class to watch videos or like the freedom of movement. But when we say that the elites have severe control and surveillance because the taping and the people are following, they checked. Even though when we go to restaurant with my father's car, they checked how many times you guys go to restaurant, like and how many times you guys go out to eat. So even my friend's father, he every day eat ramen and, like doshirak, like,
doshirak is the lunchbox.
Lunchbox, yes, lunchbox. Because he knows he's being checked and controlled, monitored. So he never visited the restaurant.
Okay.
But he's the like president of one of the biggest bank in North Korea.
Wow. Okay.
So everyone is like surveilled. You just have to follow the role you've been placed.
If you're like unlucky, just a one-time visit to restaurant could be the punishment by the regime. So the fancy restaurant, not the regular restaurant. So yeah.
If I add one more thing, that maybe people who are living in the border area might have better access to the outsider informations, but it doesn't mean that they have better freedom than others.
I see.
Yeah, I will put that away.
Now, I think it's more common, like, in rural area to watch South Korean movies. Because the signals and then the broadcasting, like RFA radio broadcastings, and then like most of the people in town listen and watch.
Yeah.
So even the people who's supposed to, monitor them, listening and watch. So it's like, same, environment.
Wait, so you're saying that RFA broadcasts, you can just get that in North Korea?
If you have a radio device, I think you can hear.
Oh, wow.
But radio devices are strictly controlled.
Yeah.
So if you got caught, you are possessing that radio devices that, you could be sent to a detention camps for several months.
I thought all the South Korean signals were jammed, actually. So,
Not rural area.
Oh, okay.
If you want to targeting Pyongyang, it is jammed. I tried when I was serving the North Korean military. I was trying to listen to radio, but all jammed. But in like rural area, actually, I was trying to fix my television, like a military unit television, and then I suddenly, there was a screen, the South Korean,
So you can just get like KBS, SBS?
Yeah, there's a
wow.
TV. But, I immediately turned off because I couldn't caught by the, the senior officers. So, that's risky. But people hide and then in their home.
And that's why North Korean regime have the single unit to register their televisions, and then once they register their television, special people come after, and then they set up something there to ban that signals coming from outside. So it is still very harsh.
But I imagine then that it must be people would try to go out of the country and get the TV from China and bring it in, and then not register it, right?
Mobile phones.
Right.
Or
But the
radios.
TV is not, small thing. So you have to register.
Right, of course. All right, so let's move on.
So now that you're here in the United States, how close are you with the Korean diaspora, whether North Korean or South Korean? And how have your experiences of integrating into Korean communities in the U.S. differed from those in China or South Korea?
So the diaspora community when I encountered in China was not diaspora community. It's like a North Korean, the officials and their families. So, I would say it's quite different, right? But with the South Korean community in the U.S., I generally found that the welcoming atmosphere, and many Korean Americans are second and third generation of immigrants, but actually many of them, their parents, grandparents came from North Korea before the Korean War. So we have so many common, like the feeling that, I also from North Korea, I also escapee, but he's just the third generation. So they always have a feeling towards North Korea, whether it's the bad feeling or, good feeling, but they always think, North Korea should be free and they want to help North Korean escapees and North Korean people. So, and they generally interested in North Korean issue, and no one likes the dictatorship and the third generation succession. So, we have so many commons, and then actually there are some Korean community people help escapees educations and the resettlement in United States. So I think they are quite helpful for people who wants to be leaders in North Korea in the future.
No, I just wanted to say, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that people so openly say that, yes, I have my origin in North Korea, because, I grew up also kind of attached to the diaspora community here. And usually most of the people, they arrived from the 1970s and 1980s. And if they arrived earlier than that and had connection to North Korea, they would kind of hide it because they don't want to be labeled as the communist people or 발갱이들.
Yeah.
Right. So it's surprising now that you're saying that people are just now freely just talking about it, and that's a wonderful change that has happened since when I was growing up, I guess.
Well,
I think because I'm a North Korean escapee, and then they might feel comfortable to talking to me that my origin came from North Korea, like that.
I see. You're listening to the RFA Insider podcast, made by two real-life staffers at Radio Free Asia.
if you'd like to send us feedback, there are many ways you can do this.
You can send us an email at insider@rfa.org.
You can comment on our webpage at rfa.org/English/insider. Just click on the episode you're listening to and write your comment below.
Or you can send us a tweet at RFA Insider or visit us in person.
No, don't visit us in person.
Right, don't visit us in person. But anyway, we really want to hear from you.
So tune in every other Friday and we'll take you behind the scenes.
And tell you what the news really means here at RFA Insider. All right, so as we've said, this interview was so long, but everything that they said was so eye-opening that we just decided that rather than cutting out a lot of the useful content, it would be better to just keep it all and release a double episode. But of course, no episode of RFA Insider would be complete without Podcast Free Asia. So on Podcast Free Asia today, we're reacting to a comment from Samdeep Sengupta 460 on YouTube, who heard our interview with Scheherazade from Uyghur Service on our last episode. He writes, "We stand with the Uyghurs and their quest to restore fundamental rights and rights to freedom."
Nice. Likewise.
Yes, it's a good comment. So, a lot of times when we get these comments from YouTube, it'll be like a one sentence, and that's great. I was hoping that, maybe we would see one episode where maybe we would get like 100 comments with people talking to each other, but so far we seem to get these little one-liners that don't seem to be necessarily directed at us. But definitely want to thank you for listening and feeling strong enough to comment. So
yes,
thanks very much for that. But now we have to advertise another RFA podcast called Master of Deceit. This is, of course, on RFA Stories. You can find that wherever you find podcasts. Master of Deceit is about the case of Shujun Wang, a Chinese-American pro-democracy activist who was recently convicted of spying for China.
So this is a 5-episode podcast, and currently 4 episodes are out. And this is the first time that we're coming out with an episode in a week that they aren't. Apparently, they've hit a snag and are still putting the 5th episode together. But I really have to say that so far, every episode has been very good.
Are you saying that because you got your first voice acting credit in the last episode?
I am. Spot me in episode 4.
只有我们中国人比较
Only us Chinese people really understood. One juror was from Hong Kong, and myself, I'm from Guangdong. We understand some of the context relating to China.
So the way they got their evidence is flawed. If the evidence is flawed, then it's unfair. This is a travesty of justice. Yes, I also feature in episode 4. No, actually, have you listened to any of them independently? Oh, yes, you have. Okay, well, I have too. And I think they've got a really good way of telling. It's a little bit different than what we're doing here. We're basically talking to each other and, talking to other people about what they're doing and seeing what's going on. But they're kind of like trying to tell the story as if like you're watching a documentary, kind of.
Oh, interesting.
So it's very cool. And I think that's why they needed the voice actors, because a lot of these people that they have talked to that play parts in the story, they gave their interviews in Mandarin. And so they need people to say what they're saying in English because you don't have subtitles because it's not a visual medium, it's audio medium. Huh. But there's other news that you would like to tell us about the last episode.
We also received a comment from a fellow coworker here at RFA, and she writes, relating to last week's episode about the North Korean singers singing the Russian national anthem.
Yes, Kim Ryugyung.
Yes,
who I love.
your idol, Eugene.
Yes, yeah. So this was when Vladimir Putin visited visited North Korea maybe a month ago. Or 2 months ago.
Would like a Russian speaker to tell us how well they're singing in Russian. She writes, as a sort of native Russian speaker, I can confirm that they are singing the anthem well.
Oh, good.
So your idol is out here killing it, Eugene.
So of course you can kind of hear in the background because I'm gonna stick it in again anyway. That yes, in fact, they are singing in Russian, and no, it's not heavily accented apparently.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. I wonder though, like, are they planning to do this for every state visit from every country? Like, could these 5 ladies who they have? I don't know if they're the top 5 singers in North Korea, like, would they sing in German, for example?
Become like musical polyglots.
Yeah, that would be really cool. So I mean, I wonder if they actually know what they're saying or if they're just kind of sounding it out.
That's true.
We'll have to see.
Yes, but thank you for the intel in regards to Russian language capabilities.
And on that note, that brings this episode of RFA Insider to a close. For Amy Lee, I'm Eugene Hwang, and we'll see you on the flip side in part 2.
Like what you hear so far?
Can you spare 3 seconds to help us out?
It'd really mean a lot to us if you would like and subscribe and follow us on whatever platform you're using to listen to us.
We're begging you. We're pleading with you.
Actually, we're just kind of asking nicely.
Yeah, that.